I am a 28-year-old and this is my story. In today's video, it is going to be very different, guys. Tribe, it is going to be a video that it's not going to be for everyone, only for the few who will want to hear and the ones who this message might be getting to them. And also, this video is going to be majorly a story before AANIQA. It is going to be a journey that you and I are going to walk through of my journey, my story. A lot of us here on our channel here, a lot of tribe members, I'm sure you appreciate Rastaman here, and you'd love to know more of who I am and where I'm coming from, so that you can be able to understand and maybe love Rastaman here better. So we're going to do today a very interesting video, tribe. I'm basically going to go in detail who I am, my background. I'm going to talk about moments that made me as a man, 3 major moments that made me who I am today as a 28-year-old man, and why these moments, I hold them to my life forever. Also, I will be talking about my mother. Most of us tribe members here, they know I'm coming from a single mother, but you guys do not know my full story. So we will be going into detail of my mother, and we will also be going into detail on my father stroke uncle. Yes, my father stroke uncle. It is going to be majorly me going down memory lane and reflecting, so that I can be able to be more grateful, more thankful, and more appreciative to where I am today and to where I'm going. I want to reflect, and I'll be reflecting with you, tribe. I have a lot to talk about. It is going to be emotional. Some of the scenes I might end up tearing here and there, but we'll cut them out. It is going to be very interesting because some of the topics that I'll be touching on, they're going to be very traumatic experiences that have left a mark on me for my whole life, experiences that I'd never want anyone to go through, experiences that teach. It's going to be a tough one, guys. It's a video that I personally have been I've been running away from making this video, from talking to you. But either way, whatever I'm going to talk to you today, if I do not do it today, it will come out sooner or later. My career as a Rastaman in this journey of content creation is my story has to be told. You, as a fan of Rakistani, as a fan of our home here, I'm sure you want to know and you deserve to know. It's something that I've been running away from. Actually, with this new memory card that we got, I had done a previous video earlier on the previous memory card that crashed. It's not working anymore, that memory card. So something there, it's really pushing me to do this. If our memory card, the previous one that we've been using forever, we've never even gotten a memory card. If this memory card has crashed and it's crashed with those videos, so this means something to me that I need to do this. We've gotten a new memory card so that no weapons forged can stop what is about to be experienced in this video. I guess I, as a man, I need to do this because there are other men outside there are other youngsters, there are other people, there are other parents, there are a lot of people who this message is for them. So I can't really hold this message, and it's your message. And as it's a festive season, let me be in a festive season of giving, and I'm going to give my story. That's the gift I'm going to give in this festive season 2024. I'm going to give my story. So let us carry this. Let us look for a nice spot. We chill. We're going to divide it into my early years, what I can remember in my early years. And these early years are going to be specifically connected to my mother. What are the early memories I have to my mother? And what are the early memories I have to my father as well? Generally, what are my early memories as a child? What are my early memories? What can I remember? In specific, the kind of relationship I had with my mother and the kind of relationship I had with my father. We'll also be tackling the kind of experiences I had and how those experiences changed me and made me who I am today. There will also be a segment of the video where we will talk about the things that solidified who I was. These are 3 things, specifically 3 things that I've sat down and I've thought about them. These are 3 specific things. One of them happened in my early years as well. We can say in my toddler years, before I go to 12 years old. Then the second one happened in my high school years, and the last one happened in my university era. So this we can put it like this: some of them happened when I was 0 to 9. There's a lesson there that I'm carrying till my life, and I'd love to share that with you, what exactly happened and how that changed my life. Also in my high school era, that was, let's say, from 10 to 20, there's something also there that happened that completely changed my life, completely made a man out of me. These are things that are very good. I love them. I love that the people around me got to give me the opportunity to express myself like that. And also, this other one is the most recent one. It happened just during COVID era, so that just recently, 4 years ago. Also in this video, we're going to talk about why I'm 28 years old, and in this moment as we speak, 2024, I am not in contact with my mother, I'm not in contact with my father, and I do not have any friends. I do not have any friends. And on that note, also for the last 4 years, I have not had any phone on me. So I will also be discussing why I've not been having a phone, why this is a good thing for me as a man, as a growing up man in this world, as a human being. I've not had a phone for the last, since COVID. I've never had a phone. The last phone I had was a phone that my mother bought me when I was long time ago. It's the last phone that I had when I was still in university. So I do not have a phone as well. So those are the things that we'll be tackling here in this video. We'll be tackling my relationship with my mother, my relationship with my father, my early life, that things that I learned, experiences that I learned, and some of the bad experiences that I also had. In this video, actually, it's going to be a lot of emotion, up and down. It's going to be a roller coaster. So let us get right into it. Tribe, you've always wanted to know who Ian is. So this is the story of Ian. Ian was born in 1996. I'm 28 years old. I was born to I'm the only child of my mother and my father. Between my mother and my father, there is no any other child between them. My early childhood with my mother. This is where it becomes now heavy for everyone who are watching. I know this is where it's going to be very difficult, but we're here together. You're with me. I'm here with you as well. So we are doing it together, guys. First memory I have of my mother, it's not the best memory. A lot of people have good memories of their mother. I was discussing this with my wife earlier. They have good memories of their mother, but for me, my earliest memory is a very gruesome memory. My earliest memory I remember of my mother was my younger brother was there. He was an infant. He was very tiny. He was crying. He was crying a lot. I don't remember why he was crying, but my mother also was getting frustrated, very frustrated. So I was a young kid then, and we were in a small house. So through that commotion of my brother crying, there was a porridge somewhere that my mom had placed for my brother. And in that commotion, I ended up hitting that porridge, and I poured the porridge down. This is the first memory I have of my mother. I poured that porridge down, and in that commotion, my mother got so furious and angry. She slapped me, and right beside where we were seated, there was here in Kenya we have a certain it's called a jiko. It's a sort of place where you cook. You use coal, you use charcoal, yeah. So there was a certain charcoal that was hot. It was just right beside us there, and when she slapped me, I ended up landing on that charcoal on my left side. And I was a kid then. This is when we're talking about when I was in my early years. We can say between let's say not 0 because I was working. So in my early years, we can say probably from 2.5 there to 3 years old, around there. I was quite young then. So she slapped me, ended up falling in this jiko. So, and I got burnt my whole of left side. This is something that I talked about earlier on our channel here. I mentioned to the tribe that I have a scar here that most of you never noticed. So this is how I got my scar, and this is also the first memory I have of my mother. So as you can see, guys, it's beginning on a rough state, on a rough state. That is the earliest memory I have of my mother. That is what I can connect to with my mother. And as I've grown up, I also have been told, I have been informed by So in this journey also, we are going to talk about two people in my life who are closer to my mother. Those are two brothers of my mother, an older brother and a younger brother to my mother. These two men also made big, significant impact in my life. And we'll begin with the older brother to my mom, and why this also relates to the early memories that I have of my mother. So the older brother to my mother notified me later on in life that so this is also very gruesome, and we have to be very understanding. My mother was very young then. My mother had me when she was, I think, about 16 to 18, about that age gap. So she was very young, and I personally have to understand this from where it's coming from. But as an infant, my mother did not want to keep me when I was born. So she ended up throwing me. She ended up disposing me. She ended up throwing me in the garbage. How you guys know these stories? Tribe, you know these stories of how a parent would give birth and they dispose a child in the trash, and the child is found later on. So I was disposed like that when I was infant. And if it wasn't for this brother of my mother, who, when my mother came back home, and also during this time, my mother also still had her mother, who also played a significant role in my life. My grandmother, that's the mother to my mother. So she passed away just around the 3-year mark. When I was turning 3 years old, she passed around there. So around that same time, my grandmother, when she saw my mother, that she came home without a child, it happened that they asked her, where is the child? Because and through that conversation, they got to know that she had disposed me somewhere, and my mom's brother is the one who came to collect me from there now. So these are the most early childhood memories I have of my mother, and everything else, there is a gap. I can't remember anything else so much of my early childhood. Even this, I do not remember. If it wasn't for my uncle to explain and let me know on this, I would have never known. And there is a very big reason why also my uncle told me this. It's something another. In my journey, in my story, it's going to be very complicated. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Very complicated, guys. Very complicated story. Very complicated journey. I've lived this 28 years. Now that is that, guys. My first memory of my mother was, as you guys can tell, there is a certain pattern here of not having the best memories as a child of your mother, and which is okay, which we will get into that later. But those are the early childhood memories I have. So you can start now to get a picture of who I am. Now with that, I was born and I was disposed and I was collected back. Already there is already so much there to it already, where we'll get to all of that. Where was my father then? We'll get to all of that. So that part of my story, that is the early memories I have of my mother. Okay. Until when I reached around that 3 years old, I did not live, most of my early childhood years, I did not live with my mother. Those early childhood years, we were living with my grandmother, and my mother has 7 siblings, so we were all of us. It was all of us, and I was the second grandchild to my grandmother, meaning there was already a grandchild, then me. So it was a big family, and it was a big family. It was a lot of people there, a lot of emotions here and there. Yeah, so I grew up in a place called Bowe. I was born here in Kisumu, but we ended up moving in my infancy stages. We moved to the western part of Kenya. It's called Bowe, and that's where I grew up until when my grandmother passed. So when my grandmother passed, because she was the one who was taking care of all of us, is when everyone had to start moving their own way. My mother couldn't take care of me, so I had to go and stay with the sister to my mother. Yeah, and that's where so we've talked about my infancy stage, and now we are going into my toddler stage here. That's where I grew up with my aunt and my uncle. My aunt was married she was already married by then. She was married, so I was staying with her. They had their first child, was very young, so I was basically their firstborn in that home. So we had moved to Webuye and we came back to Kisumu with my aunt. I left the rest of the family in Webuye. We came to Kisumu with my aunt and we started living here in Kisumu with her. Her husband is from this area, so that's why we located to this area. The reason why I choose to share this, my story today, is also I'd love for the tribe, for you who's watching, to not get depressed with my story. My story is not a depressing story. It's an inspirational story. We want to be inspired. I'd love for you to be inspired with my journey, with my story. I'd love for you to be inspired by it. Yeah. I have my coffee here. Part of it, as I say, this is not to depress, this is to inspire. It's because I had mentioned earlier, I am coming out of my shell, and coming out of my shell, it means I have to look at myself and see what the shell is for me to come out of this shell. And part of the shell that I am in are these conversations that I'd love to share with you, tribe, so that you do not have question marks when you are interacting here on Rakistani. We are discussing on the early childhood we are discussing on my early childhood memories. We won't discuss so much on the part that I stayed with my aunt, and because it's not majorly focused on that, but there is also a very significant part that happened as a child when I was staying with my aunt that I never understood, and we will get to that part, the understanding part of it later on in the video. But I never understood why this had occurred. So, as I told you, I was living with my aunt, who is the sister to my mother, and most of us tribe here, I'd like to admit that I'm not the most easiest child. I wasn't the most easiest child to have around. I wasn't the easiest child to have around. So, having this in mind, please bear everything that we're going to talk about. Bear in mind that I wasn't the most easiest child to have around. So, one of the memories that I remember with my aunt that are very solid in my mind was also very, very gruesome memory. I grew up in a very abusive environment. In every home that I stepped in, there was basically abuse, physical abuse done onto me. So it's very gruesome as well. It's one of the most saddest moments in my life. I really, really felt this so much. Until today, it's one of the most saddest things in my life. Sad, really. This and the part that I got burnt when I was young. When I think about them now that I am a parent, I do not see why a child should go through that. But we're not here to judge. As I was staying with my aunt, we stayed here in Kisumu for a while, and bear this in mind, the entire time when I'm staying with my aunt, I'm not going to school because no one was willing to cater for me to go to school then. So I was missing out a big part in my life. I was missing out a big part of being a child with the rest of my peers. I was really missing out on all of that. So I used to spend a lot of time at home with my aunt and my uncle, a lot of time. And my aunt had made a very beautiful home. She had flower pots all around her home. One of the early memories that I remember, I had a very big commotion with house help then of my aunt. My aunt wasn't at home. We had a very big commotion. I don't remember what it was over. I really don't remember what it was over, but I got very angry. And also part of my story is I've been a very angry child. I've carried this anger inside me that I lash out, and I become very angry, and I lash out to everyone close to me. So I've always been having these anger problems with me that I never understood where they come from, where we will discuss at the end of the video all this, but I've always carried this anger problem with me. And so I had a commotion with this house help, and this house help we ended up having a commotion with the house help. I don't remember exactly what had happened, but I ran out, and one of the flower pot, it was made out of clay, I ended up and I held it and I threw it on the ground, and it broke, shattered all over. And as I told you, my aunt wasn't there, so it was bad. I shattered it and I was very angry. When my aunt came back later on in the evening, the house help told my aunt that we had a commotion, and my aunt just jumped on me, man. My aunt just went all war on me. I really don't remember why I even broke the vase, but I remember the beatings I got, guys. So the beating began outside because the flower vase was outside. When she came, we went to where the flower vase was, and she started going all out on me there. I don't even remember what she was using to beat me, but it got so violent. We ended up going inside the house, and she took me to a room, almost like the room of my son, and she locked the room inside there with me, and she took she was using now a heel. This lady or a woman heel, these shoes that have a heel. So it was very pointed, and it wasn't actually the pointed ones that are sharp at the end, but it was more like a rectangle that was sharp, not a sharp pointed needle. Sharp pointed, it was rectangle but sharp. So my aunt was going all out on me because of this flower vase, and you know, she was really hitting me with this thing, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but she ended up hitting me somewhere here on my head, and I still have a scar till today. I got a big massive cut, like a massive cut. I ended up going in that fetus position, or what is called, like I went in that position, and I was bleeding now. I was bleeding on the floor, and when I started bleeding is when I think she also realized that it's gotten bad. I was bleeding all over the place. I remember it was bad. I remember the blood, like, anyway, after that I was now in that position, and she opened the door, she walked out, she closed the door and left me inside there. I stayed in that position. Probably I was crying. I can't really remember so much. Anyway, those are the early memories I have now of my childhood. These are the people who they were taking care of me. These were my guardians. Yeah, these were my guardians. So she closed the door and she walked out, and I would remain there in that position. And these are memories that as I grow up, I look back at them, and I really ask myself questions. And so in this journey of asking myself questions is where we're going to come to the best part of all this that happened to me as a child. All that had happened when I was a child, and that when I was staying with my aunt, that is the memory that I remember when I was staying with my aunt. Remember, my aunt also was married. My aunt is the sister to my mother. So after a while, I think my mom got financially able, and she came and picked us she came and picked me from my aunt, and we went on to staying again together. Around that same time, my mom also picked my brother. These are the reasons to why I'm not in so much connection with these people that I'm talking to about right now, especially with them. So with my aunt, we're done with that part, guys. We've understood that was a traumatic stress that happened to me, and we will understand why that happened to me later on. But that happened, and so now I'm staying with my mother. And life, you know, my mother being a single mother, there were a lot of strange people around us, strange men who were there for my mother during those times. And the last periods of my life that it took a big toll in me as a man as well was there was a time just a while back again that is when I saw my mother pick these strange people who came into our lives, who were never there, who came into our lives and they were going. I saw my mother pick these people over me as her son. And also this was a very traumatic experience that happened, and it's something that maybe a lot of parents do not realize it's happening, but it was very traumatic. And what happened in this situation was, in high school, there were a lot of carjacking in Kisumu, so my mom did not want me to be seen driving any car or anything like that. When we were in school, we used to hire a lot of cars and drive them around. So this person, my mom's, we can call them my stepfather in this case, or my mom's boyfriend, or we can refer to them however, mom's boyfriend or stepfather. So this stepfather ended up telling my mother on a certain date that he saw me driving somewhere in Kisumu. And my mom did not like that. As I've told you, my mom has always been one to be violent with us. She did not know how to talk to us. She did not know how to use words. She used violence to communicate to us. So whenever anything like this happened, it was violence, and this was really tough. This was quite actually recent. As you can hear, I was in high school, so I was in my teenage years. My mother called me home. I was out with my friends that day. My mother called me home. It was getting at night now. It was like getting evening now. My mom called me home and she asked me, like, I'm hearing that you are seen driving a car. And I told her, no, I never drove a car. That is the truth. I never drove any car. But she was told that she saw me driving a car. And my mother used to hate it when we lied to her. So she started assuming that I'm lying to her, and she got really mad. She got really, really mad, and she wanted to kick me out of the house. Now it has gotten dark. This mom, it got to a commotion now. This mom's boyfriend came. Mom's younger brother came. So it got to a serious commotion because my mom wanted to throw me out of the house. And I was telling mom, man, I did not drive any car, and I really was trying to speak my voice and my truth, but there was no way she was going to hear me then. So she got really violent, and she was using everything that she could find to throw it on me and to lash out at me. And it got really violent, really violent. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave, because where else can I go when you're sending me out? And I didn't know where else to go, so I was refusing to go. My mom got so mad, and she took a knife and she wanted to stab me so that I can leave the home. And that's when mom's younger brother came and told me, hey, Ian, it's gotten too violent now. If you do not leave, it's going to be bad. So mom's younger brother took me that day, and I ended up spending the night in his home. The key of the story here was I did not drive the car, and when I tried to explain to my mother, she never understood. When the boyfriend or the stepfather came home, he kept insisting, I saw you, I saw you, I saw you. So my mom listened to this man who, during that commotion, I remember telling mom, Mom, this man may not be here, sometime in the future. So please, I did not do this, but I understand on her side. I understand. I can't really judge her for this. I have to really be the one to understand or overstand. Yeah. So this thing really took a big part of me. So going back to now the anger part in me. As you can see, I grew up in a very aggressive home. My home was very, people lashed out at all time. There was lashing out. So I grew up in this home that it was just lashing out at all corners. At every corner that I turned, there was lashing out. I ended up picking up on this as well. I became a very angry child. I became a very aggressive child. Very, very aggressive. And not just aggressive with the people that are around me, but aggressive to myself. I got really aggressive, especially in my early years of life. Before I came to high school, I was a very aggressive child. Even the first things that I told AANIQA when we started courting is I have anger issues. I have big anger issues. Yeah. So I always knew I had that anger issues, but now as I grow, I can relate these anger issues to these traumatic experiences that I experienced. As an infant, being slapped and burning your face, and this is the mother, this is the first place that you stay, this is your mother. You move on to your aunt, and your aunt also is very abusive to you. And if you can understand, if this aunt can lash out to me in this state once, you can imagine on those other states that I can't even probably remember. You know, you can just imagine. So I grew up in a very toxic environment, and I never understood why my aunt used to lash out at me like that so much. And this is where now we go back to another complication in my life now, where it is my father now. As we said in the earlier of the video, my father stroke uncle. So saying that, I know it's shocking. A lot of us are shocked. What do you mean your uncle? Yes, my uncle, but not blood uncle. I've never understood, and I guess I'll never understand this, because it's their story. But my father is the same person who's married to this aunt of mine. So my father ended up having a child with my mother, and ended up marrying my mother's sister. I don't know if that has been understood. So that is my father. And as I told you, my first uncle is the one who told me about my early childhood, and the way I was thrown in the trash, and the way he picked me up. He's the one who told me that. Now the younger brother to my mother is the one who informed me about my father. He's the one who told me, by the way, Ian, if you've never known, that uncle that you stay with, that is your father. So now you guys, tribe, you can start to relate now. You can start to relate when we're talking about the violence and that I was experiencing with my aunt. You can now understand why my aunt was also violent with me, because I was the child to... Guy, this is very complicated. You know, when it comes to matters of the heart, it becomes very complicated like that. So, like, wars have been fought over matters of the heart, and I've grown up trying to understand, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for me that my uncle, the man that I've been calling my uncle my whole life, all of a sudden is my father? And on this and also when my father, there was a period in high school when my father, when my mom wanted to inform me who my father was, and it happened that one of my father's sisters found out that I am the child too. I belong like to my father, and she's the one who pushed my mother and my father to come and tell me that actually that is my father. And I remember the discussion we had. It was in Nairobi airport. My aunt was traveling back abroad, so we went and we met at Nairobi airport before she traveled back, and it was just the four of us, me, my mother, my father, and my aunt, who is my sister to my father. And that is how I got to find out officially that my uncle is my father. And that's why I've never mentioned these complicated stories in our channel here, because they're very complicated, as you guys can hear. So my father is someone who I've always been there, close to him. You can hear there was a period that I was raised in his home. So it's someone who I've always been calling an uncle, and I used to look up to him before I knew he was my father. And we've never gotten to a point we discuss this, because I understand that this generation, they don't tend to talk about things like this. So I can't go and ask them. I'll just change my life and make people who are coming after me have a better life. That's what I'm focused on, not that. Yeah, so I don't think I'll be looking, maybe later in the future I'll be looking to sitting them down and discussing this, but for now it's not on the to-do list. It's not even on the plan. So that is my complicated life of my father, who is still alive, and funny or unfunny, or I don't know how we can put it, but my father, who is my uncle, is a pastor. He owns a church here in Kisumu. And yeah, the last which was like 4 or 5 years ago, he was a pastor. His church was doing well. I don't know about that, but that is my father, for the ones who wanted to know. And that's why I don't discuss so much of my father here, because as you guys can see, it's very complicated, and as I give this story, I'm aware there are people who it will rattle them, but I can't really do anything about that. This is my life, this is my journey, this is my story. These are the things that have happened to me. I can't do anything about that. And if I don't give my story here, someone else will give my story when I'm dead. So let me be the first one to give my story, yeah. So those are the first early childhood experience, and why I currently here. I do not have a father who I'm in communication. I do not have a father, to be plain and simple. I do not have a mother, to be plain and simple. And friends, as I said about friends, I also decided to cut off all my friends 5 years ago. Now I decided to cut off all my friends and just focus on myself and healing myself and bettering myself, and not just for myself, but for the people that love me, for the people that I love, and for my community. I just decided to focus on myself for that. So those are the childhood experiences and some of the childhood traumas that I experienced as a young man, and why these traumas are very important in my life, because these traumas are what made me. These traumas, these experiences are what made me who I am today. Yeah. We've discussed now my mother, the complicated relationship with my mother, the complicated relationship with my father, all of that. Now we are going to discuss on these challenges that I picked up from. I'm going to discuss a few challenges that I picked up from my mother, and how these challenges, as I was growing up in a single home, how did I overcome them, or how am I overcoming them? Yeah. As I grew up in a single mother, it meant there were things that I couldn't discuss with my mother, a lot of things. And one of the major things that I couldn't discuss with my mother majorly had to do with, how can I put it? With the part of becoming a man. There's the masculine part of becoming a man. Those are things I could never discuss with my mother. First, when I was a child, and this I'd love for every parent to be aware, that we be very aware of how we interact with our children, because this is something that I saw it when I was a child, and it has lived with me forever, and it will live with me forever. It's something that as I've grown up, I hate that I got to see this, because it's taken a big part of my life to understand what that was. As a child, my mother came with this certain CD at home. CD. How can I? They were like those CDs where movies were on and things like that. So long time, even the adult content was being sold in CDs. So my mother came home with this CD, and she told me and my younger brother that this CD is for old people, and it's her sister who gave her this CD, and we shouldn't watch this CD. It was, as a child, you can't tell a child that, and you just take this CD and you leave it there. So I ended up being curious, and as they say, curiosity killed the cat. My curiosity ended up for me to watch this adult content. I was a child, guys. I was under 10 years old. And this, what I'm about to tell you, is what my first experience, my first stepping into this adult experience and content. This was my first experience. I ended up seeing this CD that my mom brought home, had very explicit content in it. And this content wasn't just explicit in a way of a male and female. It was explicit in a very gruesome way for a child, or in fact anyone. I think anyone in the world to see something like that. It's not how God made it to be. It was an animal and a human being. It was an animal and a female participating in the explicit content. Around that time, I understand there was a lot of that, of animal and human being participation, but that is one of the things that I picked up as well from my mother. It was a bad experience that I picked up. Also, I picked up the anger that I've been dealing with. I've been a very aggressive child, Also, the part of my mother always picking up. This is someone who should be guiding me, should be loving me, but picked up other people over me, has always made me have a mistrust issue, especially with the women in my life. I have this big mistrust with them that they might end up picking someone else over me again. So I carry these things with me in life. So here it is, we have things to do with the explicit content. That means sexual material content. As a child, I already had that in me, and as we know, this explicit content, if they're introduced to a child in an early stage, they impact their mind in different ways. Anger also, I picked up also that affected me as a child in many different ways. And also this mistrust now issue that I picked up as well. So these are all things that I picked up, and I'm going to discuss them as well, how I've managed to overcome them, and how they've affected me in my years as I'm growing up. So in my sexual part, that one we'll get to it later. Let us deal with the anger part. As a child in my early years, I couldn't deal with the anger in any way, but just lash out at people and fight whoever I could. Guys, I was a very aggressive child. I used to fight everyone. Teachers used to call me and tell me, no, you don't need to fight, I was fighting everyone, yeah. Teachers used to put me to be the head boy because I was fighting everyone, so that I stopped fighting everyone, because now I'm the head boy of the school. Yeah, that's how much aggressive I used to be. But how I started dealing with this aggressiveness and anger is in my in high school, or just before I joined high school, or my entire time in high school. I started going to gym. I started going to the gym. I started lifting weights. I started channeling this anger now to the gym, and it really changed my life. I stopped being so angry. I stopped being someone who lashes out at people all the time, and I just was going to the gym. I was so focused during that time, guys. I was focused. I was Arnold Schwarzenegger had nothing on me. I was coming for Arnold Schwarzenegger, yeah. Schwarzenegger, or however we call it, yeah. But I was really focused on lifting weights and building muscle. So I started channeling my anger to that, and that's how I started controlling my anger. That's how I started understanding this anger problem. And first, I did not know where this anger is coming from. I did not know that this anger, I would have picked it from being abused as a child. I would have picked this anger. I did not know that. So I just thought I'm a very aggressive and angry child at all times. I just thought that's just me. Yeah, so I just started training, and training worked for me very well. It gave me a good outlet of my anger. And the part of the mistrust is my God is good. In high school, during this time, just around when my mom was picking all these other random people over me, I met my wife to be, who is AANIQA. That's when in high school we met, and that's when I started growing affection for her, and she grew affectionate for me. And that's where I also started now understanding about trust. I started mellowing down to start trusting and loving, and that's where that began now, on the trust. Where now I had the biggest problem was this sex thing, guys. This is where I had the biggest problem, which all of this, the sex, anger and trust, all of this, I'm still working on them. Not anger, I'm still working on it. The trust, I'm still working on it. I'm not perfect. I'm learning, and I'm working to be better every day on those places that I know I'm weak at. Okay. So the sex part is where it became very difficult, and this also, the sex part, my wife is the one who came to help me out with this. She sat us down, the two of us. She's young, even a long time. She sat us down and she told me these videos that we watch, and these things that we do when we watch these videos, that may be to disrespect yourself in any way. They're not healthy for us, and that it's like it lit a fire in me, and I began asking myself questions about this sexuality and because ever since I watched that video, I've never stopped watching those videos now. And from that, I just went on watching and watching. Technology became better. I started watching even more and more and more. So this explicit content was something that I used to carry with me. My mother never knew, probably she's knowing from this video that I saw that video. Yeah, so you see, like a parent would never know that a child saw that video, but it's something that lived with me for the rest, it's living with me for the rest of my life. First of all, how I be dealing with this sexual part is I stopped watching those videos. That is the first thing that I had to do. I just had to stop watching those videos at all. Their videos and anything to do with explicit content, I stopped watching that. For the last 4 years now, 4-5 years, I've not been watching any of that. We had this conversation with my wife about 4-5 years ago, about just before COVID began. So 2019, early beginning is when we had this conversation. And for the last 5 years now, I have not watched any explicit content. And while we were watching this explicit content, they were coming with a certain behavior. I needed to disrespect myself in many various ways, and those ways I also stopped them. So first, I stopped watching those videos completely, and this is not fooling myself that I'm looking for a hidden way to see. No, I stopped. I closed that show. The way you go to a movie and the movie ends, that movie ended. I'm not watching it again. I'm done with that movie. So I closed that curtain of that and I'm done with that. Stopped watching those videos, and it changed my life. Just handling that part of my sexuality changed my life. I stopped watching those videos. I became more focused to the people around me. I became more focused to showing love to the people around me and to experiencing love back. I stopped watching those videos. I stopped participating in the disgrace that came with it completely. And I'm never going to go back to that, because I have already seen the fruits of living that. And also I've come to understand this year, now that we've discussed all these 3 major things, I came to understand that these things, they're not me. This explicit content, watching these videos and participating in that wasn't me. It's a video that I watched and it influenced me. That was not me. The anger that I had, I personally am not an angry person. No human being is just angry. So I picked it up from somewhere, and I looked back and I picked it up from these incidents that we've talked about. I became an angry human being. Also trust, same. These are not me. I'm not just a person who's walking around mistrusting every human being that I meet. That is devastating, to think someone is like that walking around. They're lonely, they are alone, you know. So I first of all figured that these are not me. Let me not walk around thinking this is you. You're an angry human being here. No, that was not me. So I understood where these things came from, and in my mind I have returned them to where I got them. If it's the anger that I got from, let's say, being abused as a child by a certain person, I've decided to call that anger that. If that anger is coming from the name of my mother, I'm calling that anger that. So whenever I'm finding myself getting angry, my mind is telling myself, my mind is not going to say you're getting angry. It's going to say you're getting that person. And I understand what that person has done to me as a human being. So when I get to that person, I don't want to do that to the other person, especially if I'm getting angry. So I calm down. So these are the ways that I'm working on myself to better myself. I first pinpointed these shells that I want to come out of. What are these shells? These are the shells. On my father, the biggest shell was discussing my father. I can't discuss that my father is my uncle. I can't discuss that with anyone. It's embarrassing for me. I don't know how to talk about this. Coming from trash, I can't talk about that. I'm finding it very embarrassing to talk about it. But as you guys can see with my dreadies right now, I'm coming from trash. I guess that's why you see I look how I look now. Maybe some of the things that we're discussing, they're making sense to a lot of the tribe members, who I am and why I act how I act. Maybe some of you have seen there's a period that my wife and I had a commotion in front of the video, and you tribe noticed, and you noticed how I was angry. So now you can relate where that wasn't me, and we've returned all that anger to that person. You will never see me again be an angry person. You'll never see me again watching videos that are not educative to me. Explicit videos, doesn't matter. In fact, if it's explicit, whether education or not, I do not want. That is gone. So that is gone. You'll never find me. I'm learning, not I'm written in stone, so it's perfect. You'll not find, especially with the trust and anger. Those are emotions that I guess I'll be learning for the rest of my life. The sexual part, that is like a movie. Curtain closed, done, gone. Like a day when it's over, it's over. No going back to that. That's gone. Yeah, so those are the parts of the things that I carry in life. And we, as we discuss all these traumatic experiences, there must have been some good things in life that made me who I am today. So we're going to discuss these 3 things that changed me, and they are very good things that I would encourage people to do for the people around them if they can. As you guys have, as now we are aware that my father is a pastor. Yeah, so this part of my story as a child, it's quite unique and very different like that. One of the most memorable moments that I have as a child is this was still before 12 years old, going down now. I don't remember the exact age. I think it's around the 11 to 12 years old there. I come from, I was raised in an SDA church, so we used to go to church on Saturday, and in that church that I used to go to in Nairobi, there was a period that it wasn't like a period, it was actually just one occasion. It was one occasion that lived, it's still with me forever. They came, you know, in SDA we have this moment, this on a Saturday, on a church day, they will leave the whole of that church day to be led by children. We call it like a children's week or something. So on that day, even a child, I've never seen that anywhere else, but on that day, ever in my whole life, I've never seen this anywhere else. You can let me know if it has ever happened to you, you've ever seen this in your experience. But in that child week, they offered me, so you know, they plan these things in advance. I was told the Saturday before, so I was told 7 days before. I was told in the next Saturday we would love for you to come and lead the sermon. The sermon is like the main preaching of that day. And I was young, I was given this opportunity. I didn't know what this was, in fact. So they called me. I don't know what these people saw in me. I really don't know what they saw in me. You guys know my experiences coming from all these traumatic experiences. I was a very enclosed child. I was very mistrust to everyone. So I don't know what they saw in me, but the elders, I remember they sent someone who came and told me that they're calling me, and the elders of the church told me that if they asked me if I would love to host a sermon on that day. And this is, you know, God's calling. You can't say no to God's calling. I couldn't say no. I said yeah. And the whole of that week I was preparing, and everyone that I met the whole of that week, when I told them I've gotten an opportunity to stand in front of the church and to tell a sermon, no one believed me. The people even in my home, no one believed me. Everyone thought I'm just blabbering as a child. No one could ever believe me. So I decided what story am I going to give, or what teaching am I going to give on this special day now. I decided to go with for the Christians, or I believe most of us know this story, but it's a Christian story of Goliath and David and Goliath. I decided I'll go with this story. This is a story that then was it's always, not then, just till today, is always still close to me, the story of David. So the story of David is in a nutshell is, David was there was war happening between two sides, and David was on one side, Goliath was on one side. Goliath was a giant and David was a small human being. Goliath was very devastating. He used to go and murder the other side. So a lot of people were fearing him being a big person, and he was Goliath. So David was a small person, and David, using a slingshot and the power of God, he managed to slay down this big giant, and victory was on David. And this small human being, using 3 rocks, he used slingshot and the power of God, he, you know, killed a big animal, big, like it was it's a beautiful story. So I decided to go with this story, and Saturday came, and God is good. I remember I was sweating, guys. Tribe, you know I sweat, man. So I was sweating on that day. Family members came to witness this because they thought it's a joke. So they came to witness that. Until that Saturday, even no one had gotten in contact with us, or we thought that they'll call us to ask us, is everything going on well? In my planning of this teaching, I used to have a teacher who comes to home after school. So when that teacher came home, I told him, I have this, kindly help me, like just put, like write in a way that I'll be able to narrate it down now. And the teacher is the one who just told me, just give it as a story. How you want to give it, just give it. So I ended up writing like 3 or 4 papers, like compositions of the full story. I thought I'll just go there and read the story, but that's not how it happened anyway. Thank God I knew most of it, because when I stood there, I was supposed to stand there for 1 hour and preach to old people, guys. This wasn't at children. I'm going to talk to children. These were old people. So I went and I conquered this moment as a child. I stood there, I was sweating on the cockpit. Is it called a cockpit? Oh, it's called a pit. Sorry, there was someone at the door. My wife was having that. Sorry for that. So I was saying, I went, I was sweating. I conquered this in front of everyone. It was grown-ups, and when I was done, majority of the grown-ups, when they were going, they passed by where I was and they were thanking me. They were saying that was a very good sermon, and I was a child, so I don't even remember like the sermon. I remember I was just sweating, but I did it for 1 hour. I remember I communicated to them. I stood there and I did it, guys. So this was one of the most biggest moments in my life, and I hold it dear, that if I could do this as a child, I could stand in front of people and communicate. It's true, guys. It's a big moment in my life, so I hold it dear, and I thank God that the first experience that I hold to me was this. I stood in front of a congregation and I preached. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity, because it sealed me forever as a man. That was one of the things that changed my life, and I still hold them to me dear. Changed my life. That was my early stages of life. So the second part is also very, very significant, and I hold it dear as well. It happened in high school, Jalaram Academy. I was in high school, and so it didn't happen in school, but it happened during the high school era. We were walking. I was coming from, my friends and I were coming from another friend's home. So here in Kisumu, we were walking, and I picked a phone. We were just walking, guys, and I saw a phone. I saw a phone on the ground, and it was a Nokia. And during that time, those Nokias were like, they were like the Pro Max of the Pro Max of now. So I saw that iPhone, and I picked the iPhone. It was on the road. I mean, the Nokia. I picked it on the road. I picked it. It was a silver. It had those, you know, the way Nokias used to have a silver, like a silver casing on it. Really nice. And I didn't have a phone then. So I picked this phone up, and I was so excited. It had a SIM card inside, because the way the phone seemed, someone most probably had dropped it. Not something like bad had happened. Someone had dropped it, yeah. So I picked the phone, and I removed the SIM card, and I put my SIM card in, and I went home. It was getting evening. I went home on that day to start using the phone. The next day I had the phone. The next day I decided, let me go and notify to the police station, the nearest police station. Let me go and tell them I picked a phone, and I would love to use this phone. Whenever someone would come and say they've lost a phone and they're looking for their phone, kindly let them know there's this phone that I picked and I have it. So I did that. I went to the police station, Central Police Station, Kisumu. I told them, I met a cop just at the entrance, and when you go to this police stations in Kenya, you'll just find a cop at the desk there. So the cop that I met at the entrance was the same cop at the desk who was standing at the desk there. So we were talking when he was going inside, and I told him I picked this specific phone, and to him it didn't seem like it was anything. It was like, what are you telling me? Like, just go. And that's how it ended up happening. That for some reason I went to inform the police that I picked a phone, and I started using this phone now. A week later, so I was using this phone now. I put my SIM card back on, using the phone, making calls, just having a good time with the phone. And in an afternoon, we used to have these Fridays that we used to swim in school. So I carried the phone when I was going to school on an afternoon. Friday afternoon, this is Jalaram Academy. So in that afternoon while we were swimming, they sent our principal sent one of the students to come and call me in the swimming pool to tell me that there are people who are looking for me in her office, police and an owner of the phone. Then I didn't know. So I got out of the pool, I rushed, went to our office. I was used to being sent away because of financial situation, so I just thought it as a financial situation. But I entered there. There were 3 men, 2 cops, and the owner of the phone, and our principal, who was a female. Her name was Memprabu. So Memprabu told me that this our principal told me that these people here, they've traced a phone, and that phone has been traced to this school right now. And it's a phone that there was this child who came and said my name was there, that he had picked a phone, and I studied in Jalaram. I'd given them my name and everything. So the cops had come for the phone, and if I had picked, it was a good thing that they came for the phone in school, because my principal handled it very well. I had the phone there in school. The phone was still in the same condition, good condition. I even had the SIM card still. I gave them back the phone, and they wanted to give me a financial aid, like to say thank you, because someone else, if they would have picked a phone, I think it's like self-explanatory. If someone else would have picked the phone, they would have gone and not probably reported it, and it's like the devil wanted to get me there, because if I would have not reported about that phone, chances are high they would have said I stole the phone. Chances are high they would have said I stole the phone. Yeah. So these people wanted to, the 2 cops and the owner of the phone wanted to share a token of appreciation to me, but the principal told them, no, here in our school we deal with integrity, and it was just out of our heart. And we gave them the phone. Yeah, as a kid, obviously I was like, man, if I got even like some small $2 here, $3 would have been nice, but but it was a good experience for me, that. And it was on a weekend, it was on a Friday. So that whole story happened. I went back to swimming, and on Monday in school we hold an assembly. It's a usual assembly. I did not know this. But the principal, Memprabu, during the assembly, and guys, Jalaram is like it's like the most top tier school here in Kisumu, top tier of the top tier. So for me, my mom was really struggling for me to go there, but the rest of the children there, these are children who are coming with BMWs and Mercedes Benz to school. They were rich kids. So Memprabu, on this assembly Monday morning, the assembly is going on, her time has come, she's talking, and she started giving my story on how this young man who picked a phone, and he went to report to the cops that he picked a phone. To her, I didn't know it was such a big deal like that, but she told the whole school my story, and she ended up calling me out of everyone who was standing there, the rich kids, everyone. She ended up calling me in front of everyone again, and she told everyone, in front of everyone, in front of the teachers, me standing there, she told them that this is the most honest child in this school, Jalaram Academy. The most honest child. So that also, Memprabu, thank you for that. It always gave me a big boost in my life. So that was a big thing to me, and the fact that my honesty got recognized. I've always been an honest man ever. Like just now, that is a teaching I'll teach my child, and my child will teach. It's a teaching that I hold dear to me. So here we are dealing with the lessons that I learned, and I hold them dear to me. So imagine then I was in front of everyone, in front of my soon-to-be wife. I was given my flowers in front of everyone, and those moments really stuck to me because I never get those moments. So I was really proud of that. It stuck to me. She made everyone understand that this is the most honest child in this school. For a principal to say that, I guess there has to be something that she saw in me for her to say that. Yeah. Now, all those were the earlier stages. Now high school. The most recent one and the most biggest one that happened in my life is I went down on my knees to pray. 5 years ago, during the COVID time as well, again, I went down to pray. I went down to pray, and my prayer was I wanted to be close to God. I wanted for God to hear my prayer, for God to answer my prayers. I just want to be close to God. That was it. So I went down on my knees. I prayed, guys. I prayed not just once, but like over a period of time. Every day I kneel down, I pray, I cry, I pray, I repeat until I found this gift that, to me, I'd love to share it with you. It was the gift that I found God. I found God, and I found God tribe. Guys, I found God within me. I found God within myself. Just like you are searching for God is within you. And what do I mean in this? I mean that every little good in me, that's where the God in me. The honest child, that's where the God is in me. The one who could stand and preach, that is the good in me. The one who can kneel and pray, that is the good in me. I found God in myself. So these 3 parts in my life, I'm going to hold them for the rest of my life. And as I grow, as I learn, as I get more knowledge, more wisdom, I'm sure there'll be more, and I'm going to share them with you in this journey. But these are the most 3 significant things in my life. When I preached, when I was given my flowers as the most honest child, and when I found God in myself. Meaning, this is a temple of God. Meaning, when I walk, I'm a representation of God. Meaning, as I sleep, as I eat, as I conversate, as God is within me. God is within me. When I kneel to pray, I found that comfort in knowing that God is within me. So, we can learn that honesty goes a long way. We can learn that God in me. For me, that is the only way. I do not look up, I do not look down, I do not look sides, I do not look at a mountain. I look within to find God. I look within to ask God for questions, and I get the answers. Yeah. So those are the 3 significant things in my life. I bet we're coming to an end now. These are actually moments that made me. Those are the 3 moments that made me. We're coming to an end. We have discussed a lot in this video. If I am forgetting anything, we will discuss some more as time goes. But I just wanted to share with you, tribe, some of my experiences and how these experiences make the man who I am today. 2024, I have come to realize a lot of the anger that I had is officially run dry. I have no any more of that anger. I get angry, but I'm not an angry person. I get angry, but I'm not an angry person. Yeah, I understood that was never part of me. It was someone else who had an anger problem and they ended up passing to me. Also, the sexual part, it was someone else's carelessness that ended up passing to me. Also, the trust part, I came to understand all these things, and I'm much more free. Today, I do not have friends. I just do not have friends. I just don't see the need of having friends at this time in my life as a 28-year-old. I'm focused in the future. I do not have friends. I had friends, but I do not have friends right now at all. 0 friends. I do not have a phone, and I'm happy. I do not have a father. I do not have a mother. I'm just a family man. I just belong to my wife and my son. Full stop. My life belongs to them, and my actions, my words, my day-to-day life belong to God. So I'm looking forward to better days now. I'm looking forward to hearing you giving your story. I'm looking forward to you being inspired by my story. I'm looking forward to better days. And if any of tribe you have questions, kindly let me know in the comment section. If you have any questions, if there are parts that have maybe left, because these things I was just going through them in my mind, you can ask the question and I will put my best to respond to them in the comment section. But all these are what make me as Ian. When you see Ian, these are the traumatic experiences that I experienced. These are the moments that made me. These are me now. In other words, what you've had today, this is me. I get to live knowing I have cousins who are my brothers. I get to live knowing that I'll never understand that relationship of my father and my mother. And also I get to now learn and do the things I wish they would have done for me, my father and my mother. Now do it for my home, do it for my child. The way I would have loved to be loved, and now I get to love the people around me. So as you try to see me, Ian, here in the channel, and I'm trying to be a man, I'm trying to be a husband, trying to be a father, trying to be a human being. These are the experiences that I have. These are the things I need to unlearn so that I can learn to be a father, to be a content creator, to be a husband, to be a human being who is very productive to his society. So I guess that's the story of Ian until now. I'm a father now, a husband. Life is good. Ever since I began my YouTube career, my life has changed. My story has propelled me to be a better person, and my story has not been a way of pulling me down and sucking out my energy. Yeah, YouTube also has been a very big part of my career as a 28-year-old. It's changed my life. It's given me a platform to express myself, and I would love to be able to tell more of my story for the ones who will be inspired by it, for the ones who want to know more. I'd love to tell more of my story, but that is the story of Ian. I'm 28 years old, and this was my story. Remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a sweet comment, guys. This was traumatic. Don't add trauma to it. But yeah, I didn't cry, meaning I've become strong. Yeah, I've not shed even one single tear. I've never spoke about this without shedding tears. The earlier video that I had done, I almost shed tears. Each time I do the video, I almost shed tears. The earlier video that I had done, guys, the memory card crashed, so you guys will not get to see that video. But this is the story of a young man here and now. God being my strength, God being my leader, God being inside me, I know I will overcome, I will improvise, I will adapt. Yeah. Yeah. So we are here to do our final thoughts, our final thoughts on this discussion before we end the video. So just to recoup again, why I've decided to share with you my journey is to inspire you, is so that you can be able to tell your story as well. Yeah, because your story matters. So before we go on so much on this, I would love to remind us why. I would love to discuss why both my uncles decided to tell me these things, and what was the intention, and why were they telling me this. So for the younger uncle who told me about my father, he's always been very close to me. He's always been like a confidant to me. So I appreciate that he told me then, and he was the first one to tell me, because now with hindsight I would have judged him for not telling me. So I know where his heart was when he was telling me. It was in a good place. Unlike the first uncle, when he was telling me this, he's telling me this because there was a good it wasn't from a good place why he was telling me that he is the one who picked me up from the garbage, and if it wasn't for him I would have died. So I do appreciate him for that so much. Thank you for that. Yes. And so maybe most of our tribe members do not know, but I lost a cousin sister of mine in a fire back then, I think 2017. It was a fire in like school, high school. It was a boarding school, a girls' high school. Actually, the name is Moy Girls. If you guys can check it up, Moy Girls. There were 9 girls who died during that fire, and among the 9 girls, my cousin's sister, her name was Esther Tuku, or Wamudere. Wamudere was the name that I think on that Nini on the eulogy they might have used Nancy Esther Wamudere Tuku or something like that. But so during that time is when my uncle told me we had lost this sister. We had lost my sister. To him it was a daughter as well. So there was a lot of emotions during that time, a lot of emotions going all over the place, a lot of crying and all that. Due to that crying, there was a moment that my mom and his brother, so it was my mom and the brother, they were having a commotion between them, and I sort of stood up for my mother during that time. So I told my uncle, like, you can't, like, I just stood up for my mother, which my uncle did not appreciate so much for that. Due to that not appreciation, he wanted to be spiteful for some reason, and he decided to tell me that if it wasn't for him to pick me off the trash, I would be dead. So that's when he decided to tell me that. And both uncles, that's why they decided to tell me this information. And I believe if they never chose to tell me, I would have never found out. I understand my mother, it takes courage, so I understand that part. And I also had mentioned in the video that I will talk about why I think I experienced that kind of trauma with my aunt. Now that most of you have understood that my aunt is married, there has always been a sort of a relationship there between my mother, my aunt, and my father, my uncle, it's like that, complicated. So according to how I view it is there was just so much spite around. So I can't blame my aunt for seeing me as she saw me then, being, I really love my wife, so I understand these matters of the heart are deep, and I can't really touch on that. But due to that situation, I believe that's why she had that hate in her for this young man, which is me. But I can't hold that on her, because I understand where it's coming from. That's why we're breaking down each one of them, so that we can't hold any of this on anyone. We understand where each one of them are coming from. Yeah. And for my mother, I believe, I'm not sure, but from what I understand from my mother, the violence, I will understand that. First of all, tribe, my father is from a different culture, and these culture differences here in Kenya, they're very big. They're very big. My father is from the Luo tribe and my mother is from the Kikuyu tribe. So already I knew there was always that. If you guys look back in our history in Kenya, you'll see in 2007 there was even like this cultural issue is big. There's hate between that, and it's something that really affected me a lot, because on this other side I was being taught to hate this side, and on this other side I was being to hate this side, and in between I'm there. I'm the one that the most hated part of it. So I'm learning a lot, and I believe that everything that has happened to me should have happened to me, needed to happen to me, and anything else that will happen in the future is part of God's plan. And I'm a child of God, so I've never been a child of any human being, as you guys know from the beginning. God has always been there for me. Tribe, I think most of you have noticed I have a very deep cough. Sometimes I get this deep cough, and this deep cough, I got it the period I was laid out as an infant, because if I was just born and I was disposed, you can imagine how, like probably a day old, months or like weeks old. So I don't know, but I was a baby, and during that time, spending that amount of time in the cold, I've always carried that cough with me till now. So as now I'm a father, I will use my story to be able to give Alim a better life. I will use my story to be strong for him. I will use my story to be there for him. And the part of trust, everything that we've talked about, I'm using that to better myself. If it is a trust, I'm learning to be a more trustable person, a more trustworthy person. I just people to be able to trust me more, and in that way I can trust them. And in anger, I'm learning to love. I'm learning to love every day. I'm blessed, as you guys can hear. I have people to love. I have people who love me now. I have a tribe that loves me. So my final thoughts are, everyone has a story. Everyone has a story, and every story deserves to be heard. Every one of us have a story, and your story deserves to be heard. And if you have a story, one of the best way for you to begin telling your story is through your YouTube channel. You can begin telling your story. Yeah. And also remember, God is within all of us. Let us always remember that God is within all of us, and all of us who might be going through different things, different stress, different pressures in life, different things in life. It will all be better. That I can promise you. Anything you're going through, it will all be better. That is the story of Ian. Whew.
That part, no.
That part, we thought our cops ahead, man.
The video.
And was I fucked up my DL, seen a DL, so normally. Yeah, imagine that's how tough today is for you guys. Faster in this our generation than previously. Actually, their maturity level is going down with the years. Like the younger they are now, the mature they are becoming.
No, women, I believe, are okay. How women are built we might be at the same age, but